Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Thanks so much for joining our live chat with the GMAT Club. We're really excited to spend the next hour or so with you talking a little bit about the MBA program at Cornell. I'm Chelsea Hann. I'm one of our associate directors on our admissions team. Been here at Cornell for about 4 years. Some of the things that I do in my role, I read applications, interview applicants for admission. I travel with our recruitment team and sit on our admissions committee. Also do a little bit with our communication plan. I have a group of ambassadors that I manage and work very closely alongside my colleagues in our admissions team to recruit and build our 1- and 2-year residential full-time MBA programs here in Ithaca. I'm fortunate enough to be joined by our director of our Career Management Center, David Capaldi. I'll let him introduce himself as well.
Sure, thank you. So I'm, as Chelsea mentioned, David Capaldi. I run career services here at Johnson. I'm also a Johnson alum. I spent about 20 years on Wall Street, then came back to Johnson 4.5 years ago. I also serve as the advisor for students interested in investment banking.
Thanks, David. So the first thing that I want to do is just commend you and congratulate you on considering business school as your potential next step. It's a lot of time and effort that you put into your application, so I appreciate you taking an hour away from that to learn more about Cornell. Business school, you'll find, is a great way to build a really great foundation in the different functional areas of business. You get to learn a lot about yourself as a leader, work with people from very different backgrounds and diversify your network. And then, of course, explore different potential career outcomes and opportunities. So we're going to spend the next maybe 40 or 45 minutes digging into some of the specifics related to our 1-year and 2-year residential programs. David will talk to you about career outcomes and the support from our Career Management Center specifically, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have a little bit later towards the end. So I will share my slides here with you so you can follow along as we go through the presentation here. Can everyone see this? Perfect. Perfect. So here's a quick overview again of some of the things that we're going to talk to you about today. The first being the different MBA program offerings at Cornell. I'll touch on our class profiles, share some details related to the opportunities to study on our new Roosevelt Island campus in New York City. David will touch on career development and outcomes, some placement details for our students, and then I'll give some more specifics about our admissions process. These quickly are some of the MBA offerings that we have. You'll see a few more there outside of our residential full-time 2-year and 1-year MBA programs. The presentation that I'm going to go through today will focus on the full-time 2-year and 1-year opportunities in Ithaca. We do have a number of executive MBA offerings, our 1-year Cornell Tech option in New York City, and then a joint MBA, FMBA with Tsinghua. If any of these programs are of interest to you, or if you go through the presentation today and you think maybe they may be a better fit, don't hesitate to let me know. I'd be happy to put you in touch with members of their admissions teams and share some more information. But the focus today is going to be on the 2-year and 1-year MBA programs in Ithaca. So Ithaca, if you've never had the opportunity to come and visit us, we're located in the Finger Lakes region in upstate New York. It's a really beautiful college town. I think it's an ideal place to study for business school. If you are of the mindset that Ithaca is way off the beaten path, we do have an airport, so it is easy to come and visit us and easy to get back and forth. The 1-year and the 2-year MBA, I quickly just want to explain a little bit related to who they're best for and who might be the best fit. So the 1-year program I'll start with is a smaller program. The class size is about 70. the one-year MBA is better suited for those that are not looking to change industry or function. It's a really great opportunity for those who like the industry that they're in. They maybe just need to take a quick year off and maybe go back in afterwards and move into a management or a leadership position. The one-year program, I'll also add, does require a professional certification, so a CFA, CPA, or a PMP, or an advanced degree, master's or a terminal degree. Two-year program is a little bit larger. We're at about 280, 282. And really is the traditional full-time two-year MBA format. It does have the internship in between first and second year, really structured for those that are looking to shift industry function or change their career path. There are also, I'll note, a number of dual degree offerings that we have at Cornell. If you're interested in studying in some of the different schools or colleges across campus, maybe a JD or engineering, maybe in an MHA or industrial and labor relations, don't hesitate to, reach out and let us know. We'd also be happy to talk to you about those opportunities to study here as well. Our class profiles here, you'll see the class sizes with the numbers of enrolled students. This was for entering the two-year fall 2019 and the one-year spring 2019 or May. So the one-year program is May to May. Two-year program traditional starts in the fall. We're intentionally small. You'll notice our class sizes are a little bit smaller. And again, that's intentional. We want you to have a small community and give you the opportunity to get to know everyone else in your class. You'll really be able to work in a collaborative and supportive environment within these small class sizes. Average age and years of work experience, you'll see there, it's about 5 or so years for both programs. Average age is similar with 28 for the two-year and 30 for the one-year. You can also see some of the diversity representation and the different number of countries that we have in both programs. And my biggest tip related to looking at the class profiles, I want to encourage you that if you don't fit within these ranges or these numbers, don't count yourself out. Please remember that they're averages and they're ranges. They're not by any means minimum requirements for entry into the program. Our goal is to build truly diverse classes with people from different and unique backgrounds. There truly is no traditional business school applicant. And so if this looks a little bit foreign to you or like something that you think you don't fit into, don't assume that and don't count yourself out. Please don't be afraid that you wouldn't add value to the program. I want to transition to what are some of the differentiators related to our curriculum at Johnson. The first being the opportunity to take on one of these immersions. And immersions are an opportunity to gain some hands-on experience in the industry for which you're looking to work post-MBA full-time. And so these take place in the spring of your first year. They are just after your core curriculum, which would be in your fall. The nice thing about the immersions, it gives you an opportunity in advance of your internship to dive into that field, especially if it's something that you've never done before. So it's great for those that are interested in changing their careers. You are coached by business practitioners, industry leaders. You get to network with different companies and gain exposure to the types of jobs and opportunities that they're looking for in your internship or post-MBA. What I think is also a great benefit of the immersions is that you're in your core in the first semester, you're learning and getting to know a really diverse group of people. You're working in your core teams with students that are really from different backgrounds and might be nothing like you, and that's really exciting. But then in the spring, in your immersion, you get the opportunity to kind of build a really great support system of other students that are recruiting for the same type of internship or full-time job offer. So kind of gives you a closer network of students that you get to know on a much more deep level that are very much interested in similar things post MBA and professionally. The actual immersions that we have are listed here on this grid. So there are technically 7. You can also add a consulting focus to any of these if consulting is your post-MBA interest of choice. And then if none of these fit what you're looking for, you do also have the opportunity to customize and build your own. You'll see that on the bottom right square. They frequently do include concentrations in other schools. I would say most often students that customize their immersion are students that are interested in maybe entrepreneurship, hospitality, healthcare, real estate, or maybe food science, agriculture, some sort of field in that space. Also nice that it gives you the opportunity to kind of expand outside of the business school a little bit if that's something that you're looking to do. I'll shift gears a little bit here and touch on what most of you are probably really excited about, the opportunities to study on Roosevelt Island in New York City. This opened just a few years ago. It's really exciting for us. We're truly able to be a 1 school and 2 campus model. Really nice blend of kind of urban and inner city environment, and then also the opportunity to get away from it a little bit and come back to Ithaca and study in a college town. The opportunities in New York City start with electives. These take place in the fall semester of your 2nd year. These are Friday, Saturday classes. You can take 2 in a single weekend. Some of the electives that we offer are listed on the right-hand side of your screen there: design thinking, digital leadership, cryptocurrencies, cloud computing, a few really innovative cutting-edge courses. They're not something that you'll find offered everywhere. And then you also have the opportunity to do one of our 2 7-week intensives. The intensives, the first one is FinTech, which is the first one that I'll start with. It has the goal of really teaching our students how to speak the FinTech language. So there's lots of access to FinTech industry practitioners. You're kind of immersed in FinTech. It's a really exciting course. It does also have a group field project and a practicum to it. Some of the classes that you might take: blockchain and cryptocurrencies, business models, and then I mentioned the practicum and the group field project. The second intensive that we have is digital marketing. It looks a little bit similar to the 2 FinTech related to the structure of it, though the classes, of course, will be quite different. So some of the courses that you might take in digital marketing include digital marketing platforms, strategy creation, measurement, digital marketing analytics, and then, of course, the group field project. I'll also add both of these intensives take place in your last semester. So this is the 2nd spring semester. They're 7 weeks, so they're half the semester, and they do overlap. So you can't choose one and then enroll in the other. You would have to, if the intensives are of strong interest to you, you would have to choose one. At the end of those 7 weeks, you have the option to stay in New York City and spend the full semester there and do a half semester 7-week-long elective, or come back to Ithaca and do a 7-week elective here with us. Some of the general benefits of taking classes on Roosevelt Island: you can take advantage of the Cornell Tech Network and get to know some of the students and faculty on that campus a little bit better. You're able to connect with professionals in your course industry. You get access to some recruiters in those different fields. And then, like I said, you truly do get the best of both worlds. You're gaining an urban, fast-paced environment, studying in Manhattan, and then a more rural college town environment in Ithaca. Here's another really nice photo of the facilities on Roosevelt Island. The first 2 buildings in the front are innovative facilities for classrooms and courses and learning. We do also offer housing. So logistically, we get that question quite a bit from candidates and students in the program related to, being responsible for finding housing in New York City for a weekend or 7 weeks, which of course can be tough. No, we do also offer housing options as well. I'll give David the opportunity to share some information about career management.
All right, great. Thanks, Chelsea. So I guess to kick off, this is the advising team here at Johnson. I think the one thing you will notice is we are industry specific and career path specific, as opposed to being generalist, which is something that you may see at a number of schools. I think what I like most about our team is that all of us, as you can see from the various logos on this page, all of us have worked in the industry in which we advise. So I think that's very helpful in talking to students that may be looking at an industry for the first time. We can provide a perspective that from having been actually working in that industry. And I think that that's really useful as students are considering different career paths. So what do we do in career management? So many people often ask that question. So we will host a number of one-on-one meetings with students. So over the course of a year, we'll host more than 3,000 meetings. So we encourage everyone to meet with an advisor when they first get to campus, whether it's in May in the one-year program or in August in the two-year program. And from there, it's really up to you. We don't have a cap on how many meetings you can have. Some students will meet with a number of different advisors if they're unsure of where they want to go. Or you could have students that, pick one advisor, they know what they want to do. They tend to be, if they're very successful, they may meet with an advisor just a couple times over the course of the period that they're here, whereas others will meet, frequently with advisors. We host a number of career programs. I'll talk about that in a minute. In addition, we also meet with companies, and I think this is also very helpful for students because we're out talking to recruiters and alumni at the companies that they're interested in, and it allows us to bring back information on what companies are looking for, hiring trends, et cetera. We host more than 150 corporate events on campus, lots of interview schedules, both in the fall for full-time and in the spring for internships. And then we work with a couple other schools on career forums, recruiting events that take place across the US in San Francisco, New York, Chicago, and Boston. So how do we prepare you when you arrive at Johnson? So as I mentioned, we're very much focused on one-on-one meetings at the beginning to get a sense of like who you are, what are you interested in, what are your goals. We work with you on getting your resume together. So we use a software package called VMOC. So you'll run your resume through VMOC and then meet with an advisor to then review and work on your resume. We host professional dress sessions, prep programming on behavioral interviews, case and technical prep. We'll do a series of mock interviews, both with advisors and with alumni. We host a number of sessions on how to negotiate your offer. So we want to make sure you get your offer, but that you get the best package that you can get depending on the company you're going to. We work very closely with professional clubs and oversee career work groups. What are career work groups? They're a very critical component of the recruiting here and recruiting prep here at Johnson. So we pair up incoming students with 2 second years that's successfully recruited in the career path that you're interested in. You will meet weekly, in some cases more than weekly, during the course of the fall to get you ready for interviews and when recruiting actually goes live. Typically, it's going to be 4 to 8 students with 2 second years, so it's very small groups where there's a lot of one-on-one interaction. They'll work on everything from more eyes on your resume, cover letter review, help you work on your pitch, your behaviorals, talking about networking because they're industry specific. There are different approaches that work for networking, whether you're in tech or whether you're in banking, it's going to be a little bit different. And then they'll do the industry specific, either technical or case prep. In addition to career work groups, we also work with the professional clubs and coordinate a number of different programs across now all of the different major career paths. So you can see the different verticals, whether it's finance, consulting, tech. We also run a series of programs for international students so that they're aware of sort of visa issues or they may need additional help in terms of cover letters and on the networking side. We encourage students to participate in as many of the programs as you can. I encourage students to, you don't have to stay in your one silo. So If you're interested in tech, you may want to go to an IPO session if that's taking place on the finance side. So we really do encourage students to try to hit as many of these as possible. The one thing I think you'll find, though, is the calendar's sort of crazy, so it's hard to hit all of them. So what is recruiting like? So in terms of the timeline, if you arrive here and this is focused, this slide is focused on the 2-year program. So assuming you arrive here in August, you will do a lot of prep in August and September. Companies will start showing up to campus in early September, and that would be true for both full-time in the 1-year program and for internship recruiting in the 2-year program. So corporate briefings will take place during September and October. If you're interested in banking, informationals in New York City will start after fall break and will run through mid-December, with most resume drops happening for internship recruiting at the end of December. In addition to on-campus activities, there are a number of diversity conferences that take place across the country. Some of the conferences are more open to different groups than others, and when you get here, and depending on what you're interested in, and depending on the conference, we'll work with you to make sure that if you are interested in attending one of those conferences, or you're interested in certain companies that may go to those conferences, we'll make sure that you're aware of it and prepped for that. In terms of the spring internship recruiting cycle, so on-campus interviews for internships will take place from mid-January into early February. If you are looking at the 1-year program, on-campus full-time interviews take place in mid-October. So in addition, then in the spring, both for internship and full-time recruiting, I mentioned the different career forums that we host across the country. So they take place between February and early April in the different cities that are listed there. So in addition to all of the on-campus recruiting activities, we do a lot of treks, and treks are a word that's thrown around a lot in business schools and here at Johnson as well. And treks, we have 2 kinds of treks. There are travel treks that are more academic focused that'll take place over typically over either winter break or spring break, but then there are lots of career focused treks, and that's what you'll see on this slide. So we do everything from Tech Day on the Roosevelt Island campus that Chelsea talked about. So we host that in mid-August, so not long after you arrive here. So if you're interested in tech, that's something to look out for. And then we'll host a number of treks, very career path focused, whether it's banking, consulting, tech, energy, marketing, general management. Many of them go to New York City, but some of them, like tech, will go to the West Coast as well. Boston, there's a Houston and London banking trek. So lots of opportunities to participate in treks. They're a great way to network with companies, a great way to meet a lot more people than you would meet when companies come to campus. Applicants are often interested in, how do students get their internships? So on this slide, we just highlight, how students are successful. So about 60% of students will get an internship, at least through on-campus recruiting activities. About 80% will be sort of on-campus or school facilitated. So in addition to the on-campus interviewing, there are also job postings that will pop up on our job board. There are the diversity conferences that I mentioned, as well as just networking or contacts that you may get either from someone in the career office, a faculty member, an immersion lead, or just someone at Cornell that will refer you to someone, and it ends up in a position and an internship. Otherwise, about 20% of students will find something through either their own personal network, and some may, a few often will go back to companies or industries where they're already well connected. So lastly, how were students successful? So in the class of 2019 that just graduated, 94% of students received an offer within 3 months of graduation, and that's when business schools report their placement for ranking purposes. Our average starting compensation was just over $131,000, and that's up $5,000 from the prior year. So that was a nice uptick that we saw. About 65% of our students will end up either in financial services or consulting. So those are the two, big buckets, with tech being would be a number 3. And then you can see the top recruiters in the box. And I think, as I look at that list, it's, I think, a very nice, diverse list of consulting firms, tech companies, investment banks, and a few corporates mixed in throughout. In terms of internships, for the class of 2020 that did their internship last summer, all students that were looking for an internship found an internship. Conversion rates were very strong, so our students were very successful. So when you see conversion rate, it's students that get a full-time offer at the end of their summer. So 90% of students that interned in consulting left the summer with a full-time offer to return. And a little over 80% of students that went into banking got an offer to return full-time. In the box, I highlight the companies that hired 4 or more interns. So there's a fair amount of concentration among, again, a very nice, diverse blue chip list of companies. But one point that I found interesting as I put this data together is there were also 85 companies that hired 1 student. So there are the top 20 companies that a lot of people are very focused on, and you'll see across many business schools. But what I like to see is that there are lots of companies that may hire 1 student. So there's a nice diversity across the number of companies that are recruiting here at Johnson. So, for a smaller school with 280 students, we had over 100 companies recruiting students for internships. So I thought that that's a very good stat that I like to share. With that, I will turn it back to Chelsea.
Thanks, David. Now you've heard a little bit more about our program offerings and how our students place. Now you might be interested in hearing more about how to put your best foot forward in your application. So I'm going to share a couple tips, a couple of my best tips on how you might craft a strong application for Johnson. A quick list of our application checklist. These are the requirements that we have for admission or for a completed application to the program. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on each one, just sharing, again, some of my biggest tips related to putting each piece of these together to kind of result in a formal completed application for admission. So the first thing is the application fee. I don't really have a tip for that. Just submit it with your application. It is waived for current Cornell students. The second is the resume. The resume is a really important focal point of your application. It's usually the first thing that the reader will look at when they're opening your application to evaluate it. And so some of the questions that we might have about your resume and the things that we're trying to answer when we take a look at it is, what is your professional experience like? What does your growth and trajectory look like? Have you been promoted? Have you taken on additional responsibility? And then, of course, some of the other questions we might have, are there any gaps? Did you take any time off, or do your career rationale, your career transitions have clear rationale, and do they make sense? So keep in mind your resume should be 1 page if you have less than 10 years of professional experience. Also, something I like to tell candidates is to be mindful of using wording or jargon that's too technical or too specific to your field. So make sure that anyone outside of your industry or your role can understand your accomplishments and your achievements. That's what's most important. And then your resume, also keep in mind, will be key in telling your story and communicating the work that you've done to admissions. The next piece of your application that I'll touch on are the essays. The first is a goals essay. It's very, very brief in the beginning. It's sort of fill in the blank related to your short and long-term goals. And then we do give you the opportunity very briefly to explain and provide some additional information and some more explanation. They're very straightforward. We want to make sure that you've thought about your goals post-MBA and that they do make sense for you. The other 2 essays that we have, the first is our back of the resume essay, which is our creative submission. And it's your opportunity to tell the admissions committee who you are outside of your academic and your professional achievements. So the prompt basically says, if the front of your resume provides your academic and professional achievements, what would it say about you as a person if we flipped it over to the back? What would it say about your character, or a mentor that you have, or an experience that you've had that's been really impactful in helping to shape who you are and how you got to where you are today? So it does kind of give us the opportunity to learn a little bit more about you as a person and the type of value that you would be adding to our class. Related to the submission of the back of the resume essay, it does offer some creativity. So we've received things like personal websites, YouTube videos, PowerPoints, prezzies, really nicely written submissions. My advice related to the type of format, or the type of submission that you provide for the back of the resume is to choose something that you're familiar with and that plays to your strengths. So, if you are a really great writer, maybe you choose to write the essay. If you like photography, maybe you provide a digital portfolio with some photos that you've taken. If you're a really great cook, maybe it's a recipe book or something like that. The impact essay is the next essay that we have, and it allows us to learn about the ways in which you see yourself potentially getting involved and contributing to our community at Johnson. So the impact essay does require you to do a little bit of homework and do your research. Get to know our community. Check out our website, read through blogs and testimonials from some of our students and our alums, connect with our students and alums and members of our community. Come and visit us. Do webinars and online information sessions like this. These things will be really helpful in giving you some information and some details to put into your impact essay. We want to see that you've kind of identified Johnson as a good fit for you and an ideal place to study for business school. We also, I'll just note, have an optional essay. It is optional, so strictly an opportunity to provide an explanation for anything that you think needs some additional clarity. Maybe you do have a gap in your resume or in your work experience. Maybe in undergrad you failed a course or you took a semester off. Maybe you're providing some details related to who it is that you're selecting for your letter of recommendation. All of these things are great things to put into the optional essay. Even though it's called an optional essay, it doesn't have to be an essay. Bullet points are fine. Letters of recommendation, we only require one. We will accept up to two. So be very strategic in who it is that you're selecting for your letter of recommendation. We always first prefer a current supervisor if possible. If that is not an option, sometimes maybe your current supervisor has only supervised you for 2 weeks, or maybe they don't know that you're applying to business school. Those are perfectly good reasons not to choose your current supervisor. Again, make a note of it in the optional essay, and then ideally go to your previous supervisor. The goal with the letter of recommendation is to find someone who can talk about the details of your work. So your leadership potential, teams that you've worked on, your work ethic, projects that you've managed, if you've worked cross-functionally or cross-culturally. Those are the types of things that we're looking for from your letter of recommendation. My biggest piece of advice is to keep it professional. So even if you're still pursuing undergrad or in a graduate degree program, you're newly graduated or out of undergrad, choose an internship supervisor or something closely related to a professional setting. That's what would be most preferred. Also, just make sure that you identify your recommender and have those conversations early. So if you're looking to apply in January and you haven't started those conversations yet, I would recommend that you do so as soon as possible. Transcripts, we do require your transcripts from all post-secondary coursework and degrees. We'll look at your transcripts to get a sense for whether or not, and your GMAT and your GRE go into this as well, but we're looking for whether or not you can handle the rigor of the program. So your transcripts, your GMAT or your GRE score will give us a sense for how likely you are to succeed in the classroom. That's the goal with the academic piece of the application. We're going to look at your undergraduate performance. Did it go up? Did it go down? Did you take a semester off? Did you challenge yourself? What types of courses did you take? What was your major? If you maybe are from a liberal arts background and you've never taken a quant course, it's not a bad idea to think about starting one or at least pursuing one in advance of business school. But again, don't count yourself out if you didn't study finance or something directly related to business school in undergrad. That's perfectly okay. The GMAT or the GRE, I'll quickly just mention that we do accept either exam. So choose the one that that kind of best fits you. I say always to do a practice exam for either one. Some people find that the GMAT is a better fit for them. Others are the reverse and would rather do the GRE. We will not take kind of combined quant and verbal from different exams and put them together to give you an overall kind of new score, but we will take your best score from one exam, the GMAT or the GRE. We do require a TOEFL or an IELTS or an English language exam if English is not your native language. If you did study in a university or an institution for which English is the native language, you do not have to take the TOEFL or the IELTS. If you have questions about whether or not that could be waived, just send us a note and we'll let you know. And then, of course, your application would be completed with your admissions interview. Our interviews at Johnson are invitation only. You may interview on campus or via Skype. Your interviewer would either be a member of the admissions team, or maybe another professional staff member here on campus, or a well-trained second-year student. Keep it professional, regardless of who your interviewer is. Also, keep in mind, we want you to be genuine and we want you to be authentic. These are meant to be conversations and opportunities for our team to learn a little bit more about you. The interview is your time to shine. It's your time to let your personality come through, your passion for your goals, and your interest in our program. You also have the opportunity to further connect the dots related to your work experience and your path to where you are today, your goals and why it is that you're interested in pursuing them, and then of course how that specific program can help you get there. Be prepared and ready to talk about your background and go through your resume, your career goals, why it is that you're interested in an MBA as your next step, and then why, of course, Cornell is on your list. So those are that's the checklist of requirements for a completed application to Cornell. Related to deadlines, we have 4 rounds of admission. If you're applying via the consortium, you also have the 2 standard consortium deadlines. Our next upcoming deadline for both the 2-year and the 1-year is on January 8th. So in just under a month, we'll have our January round application deadline here. Please know, if you're interested in the 1-year program, applications that are received after January 8th will be reviewed on a space available basis with a final submission deadline of March 5th. And then, of course, if you're applying via the consortium, you're well aware the consortium round 2 deadline is on January 5th. So that is it related to the program at Cornell and the next steps for admission. David shared information about our placement and career support. What kind of questions do you have? Oh, that's a good question. So there's a question here. I'm not sure if everyone can see these about the FinTech Intensive. Is there enough space in the FinTech Intensive for a 2-year MBA student that's focused on consulting? I would say every semester it does depend. So, or every year, this does depend. We do cap it because of logistics. So for residential students in both the 2-year and the 1-year, so both students in both programs can actually do the New York City intensives with the Cornell Tech students. We cap it at about 60. So it does have a cap, but it's also not tremendously difficult to be involved or participate if that's something that's of strong interest to you. There are other students who kind of opt themselves out of doing the intensives because they choose to study abroad, which overlaps with the intensives. Others are here in Ithaca because they're still recruiting, and so that also opts them out of doing the FinTech Intensive if they need to be on campus for recruitment reasons. So you can certainly, you know, try and participate in the FinTech Intensive, even if FinTech isn't your, you know, primary focus post-MBA. Yes, I just touched on this, Hasib, but yes, one-year MBA students can also participate in the New York City electives and intensives.
So if you're career management for the tech MBA program, so, I mean, process-wise, it's fairly similar to if you were looking at the one-year program in terms of full-time recruiting. They do have a dedicated career staff on the tech campus. So it's a separate team that works with the tech MBAs. If you're doing one of the intensives, you know, we'll send people periodically to touch base with students that are still recruiting down to the tech campus, but it's fairly similar, but a completely separate process.
Oh, interesting.
So a question is around the JPrep programs and how we introduce students to ideas and trends in industries. So I guess the JPrep or CMC prep process will coordinate with, some of it is advisor-led, some of it is faculty-led, depending on how narrow the topic may be. Some of it may be alumni that we'll reach out to if they happen to be on campus that are experts in a certain area who may you know, cover material or a session with students. How are students introduced to ideas and industry trends? I think a lot of that comes through, there are a lot of alumni that come back to campus either from, you know, panels that we'll do during preterm. So as early as preterm, we'll get alumni back on campus to make sure that they're connecting with students. And then I think you'll find over the course of the whole time you're here, whether it's alumni coming back with their companies or to speak in classes, there are lots of opportunities and ways for them to engage with current students. And I think that's probably the best way that students get, you know, aware of new trends that are going on in industries. Internships be considered as will internships be considered as a work experience? So, I mean, obviously, yes, an internship is a work experience, although I would say that I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but if you don't have any work experience other than an internship, it will count, but just keep in mind that it's a rather limited amount of time. So it won't mean the same as someone who has many years of experience.
Oh, I'm so glad someone asked this. This is a great question.
Is geographical location a factor, positive or negative in terms of recruiting? So, you know, yes, Ithaca can seem somewhat remote. That being said, you know, it's fairly easy to get to and from New York City. So there is a Cornell bus service. There are also additional sort of private bus services that run rather regularly between New York City and Ithaca. So those are pretty popular with students and actually alumni. As Chelsea mentioned, there's an airport here in Ithaca. A lot of people will also fly into Syracuse, which has more direct flight options, and then it's about 50-minute drive or so from Syracuse. We have there are lots of companies. I mean, we have throughout September and October, we have probably 2 to 4 companies every day on campus. So I don't really feel that the distance is deterring them from traveling. Nonprofit opportunities for international students in the U.S. So, you know, I think that's one where, you know, every year we may have a small number of students that are interested in nonprofits. Probably an even smaller number of those will be international students that would want to stay in the U.S. in nonprofit. I think the challenge, I'm a little more conversant on the corporate side, but I think the one thing that you would want to check, and we have some resources for that, are what nonprofits are willing to sponsor international students. And that's something where, you know, we do have some resources that you could do some research on that. Do we have clubs focused on sustainable energy or environmental consulting? So we do have, I guess there are probably two clubs that come to mind that would sort of cover that. We have an SGE club as well as an energy club. The energy club, I would say, is a little more focused on renewables than traditional oil and gas, although it does cover some of that. So I would say both of those clubs would be areas of interest if you're interested in environmental consulting. I know that the SGE club does a speaker series throughout the fall, so they also bring back, it's another way that you're interacting with alumni, they bring back alumni over the course of the fall through a speaker series, but it's a fairly active club.
Yeah, so if you are interested in how to move forward as a candidate on our wait list, a couple things that I would encourage you to do. The first would be to do a self-assessment and of your own profile related to our class profile and kind of what our student typically looks like in the 1 or 2 year program. Come up with an action plan on your potential areas of improvement and how it is that you would like to move forward, and then let us know. Send one of us a note and let us know what your action plan looks like, and we'll let you know if you're on track and moving forward in the correct way. The other thing I'll add about being on the wait list is that it's not a bad place to be. The wait list really it shows that your application has potential. There's just a few areas of improvement or a few things that we would like to see you do before moving you forward with an offer of admission. And so if you find yourself in a place on the wait list this year, don't panic. Do as I mentioned. Come up with your potential areas of improvement and how you think you can strengthen your application going forward. Develop an action plan. Let us know, and then stay in touch with us. Chat with members of our community, stay in touch with admissions, and let us know that you're still interested. Check in with us frequently, and we can make sure that we're giving you feedback related to your action plan and that you're moving forward appropriately. Drawbacks of joint programs or dual degree programs. The JD MBA specifically, so I think generally related to dual degrees, what I would encourage you to do first is think about why it is that you need either the MBA or the other degree, whether it's a JD, engineering, industrial labor relations, an MD, whatever that looks like. Think about what it is that you're looking to do post-graduation and which one or both of those would be most important and relevant to you, A, pursuing your career path of choice, and then B, succeeding once you get there and making sure that you have the right kind of toolkit to be successful in that role post-graduation. I'll also note that the JD MBA at Cornell, we actually have two, not two formats. So you can do the JD MBA with us in 3 years or 4 years, the difference being which one of the MBA programs you're pursuing, the 1 year full-time program or the 2 year full-time program. 1 year, of course, would be foregoing the internship.
Are there campus work opportunities such as teaching assistants? There are lots. So in your first year, not that many, but by your second year, there are lots of opportunities for TA positions and tutor positions for second years to work in both electives and in the core classes. How does Cornell look at the professional qualifications like a CFA charter, and is that helpful? I think it really depends on the career path that you're looking to pursue. So a CFA in particular is going to be helpful if you're looking at asset management, buy side, sell side, debt or equity research. It's particularly valuable. If you were looking in tech or consulting, much less so. So I think it really depends on the career path that you want to pursue.
For admission to the program, no. A CFA for the 2 year program is not required for admission. For the 1 year program, if that is going to be what qualifies you for admission to the program, that we do need to see that you've pass the 3 levels of the CFA. You don't necessarily have to be a charter holder yet, because we know the work experience piece is also a requirement. What I'll also add is that the CFA, David gave a really nice explanation related to post-MBA outcomes and the recruitment piece. For admission, the CFA is, if it is something that you have, it's beneficial related to the admissions team getting an understanding for whether or not you can handle the quantitative piece of the core curriculum specifically. Something most people underestimate about the MBA program.
How busy you are, I would say.
Yeah.
I think students think, you'll look at your schedule, and you'll see that you have classes 3 days a week for, I don't know, maybe 5 hours a day. So probably like 15 hours of class a week. And you'll think of, well, I'm going to have lots of free time. But I think what you're often forgetting is the fact that there are a tremendous amount of recruiting events or speakers on campus or club activities that you're going to want to get involved in, so that, and then you have core team meetings. And so I think, often people are surprised at how busy they are, especially during that first semester.
So that's an interesting question. It's related to the number of MBA programs that we have at Johnson, and whether or not we're spreading our resources too thin or providing too many things. The MBA programs that we do offer, we offer for a reason, and it's because they're specific to people pursuing certain industries and certain opportunities, and the things that you're learning in those programs are very much relevant to what it is that you're looking to do. And so something that I really appreciate about Cornell, not just Johnson, but the entire institution, is that they're very focused on the success of the students in their program. And so they want to make sure that they're offering the very best that they can and providing our students with all of the resources that they need to succeed in their area of study or their industry of study or industry of work. So I think the MBA programs and the different degree options at Cornell that you'll see listed are opportunities and options because it makes sense relative to someone's interest in their industry, and because we have the resources available to support it. We have fantastic faculty and career support and staff who are prepared to help our students pursue these different opportunities.
Yeah, and I would just add that, as I mentioned, that if you're at the tech campus, there's a dedicated team. I mean, that's similar. So everyone on my team only supports the Ithaca residential 1- and 2-year students. So there's a separate career team that works with the EMBA programs, separate with tech, separate Tsinghua. So, and I think that's similar for student services as well. So the teams that are here in Ithaca are primarily focused, if not solely focused, on the 2 residential programs. So currently, our program is currently not designated as STEM. It is something that we are working on, and there are lots of discussions. But as of today, it would not be designated as a STEM degree program.
We have about 2 minutes left. Are there any additional questions before we wrap up for today?
Yeah, so placement for the 1-year program. So I would say if you look, 6 months after graduation, it's very similar to the 2-year program. I think that sometimes it takes a little bit longer because you don't have, so in the 1-year program, you don't have the internship conversions that I talked about because you go sort of straight through from May to May. So I sometimes feel that some students, will then really start their recruiting toward the end and toward graduation. It tends to be, I think it's less financial services and tends to be more concentrated in tech. and consulting, with tech really the biggest area in the one-year program. All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you all very much for taking the time to learn more about our program today. I'm going to just pop up our email addresses here so that you can continue the conversation with us and be in touch if you have any additional questions, or if you need to reach out going forward, please don't hesitate to do so. Thanks so much for joining us today. I look forward to seeing all of your applications in January.